Katie, for our program tonight on air pollution. Before we get going, just a reminder that we've got some other things in the works. And tomorrow we have a major program on the environment, taking a look at what's going on the Mekong. Unfortunately, it means we've got two big environmental programs in a week, but the reason for that is that we have Brian Ehler of the Stimson Institute here, and he's a leading authority, so it was tomorrow or no choice. And he'll be joined by Pianporn Dites, who is the campaign's director, Southeast Asia Program for International Rivers, and Apichai Sunchinda, an independent development specialist on ASEAN. On Friday, we have a program on martial arts, a workshop that's in the clubhouse, should be interesting. And then on the next Wednesday, a week today, we have a program called Banish the Manel. The Manel, in case you don't know what it is a panel without women. Fortunately, we have a woman tonight, so we're not going to get done on this thing. But it takes a look at the whole situation of women not being represented in panel discussions and wherever. Anyway, that's coming up. And then on the 21st of March, we have an evening with Patrick Wynne, the author of Narcotopia, in search of the Asian drug cartel that survived the CIA. And that's at 7 p.m. So finally, just a reminder that on the 29th, the last Friday of the month, we will have our annual general meeting when a new board will be elected. So if you have things that you wish to say to the management of the club and to the board, then come along that 7 p.m. And the program on the Mekong tomorrow is 7 p.m. as well. And so to this evening, if I could invite our distinguished panelists to join me. We have Kun Decharut Sukumled, who is the director of the Think Forward Centre, which is in a part of the Move Forward Party, and he's an advisor to the leader of the opposition, Kun Pita, who narrowly missed becoming Prime Minister. We may be having programs in the coming weeks on the whole Move Forward situation. Then we have Kun Winarin Lulitanon, who is the co-founder of the Thailand Clean Air Network and a former World Bank economist. And we have Ingo Poole, is that correct? Poole? Poole, okay. Managing director and co-founder of South Pole Group, who is an expert on carbon mitigation. So we're going to have Kun Decharut set the scene. He has a presentation. We also have Danny Marks, who is an assistant professor of environmental politics and policy in the School of Law and Government. He's at Dublin University, so he'll be joining us from Dublin at about 8 p.m. And he's got a limited time slot, so when he comes on, we're just going to push him straight in. So Kun Decharut is going to give us a feeling of what's going on at the moment. Convener will tell us about the legislation manoeuvres that are underway at the moment, and Ingo will talk to us about mitigation. Kun Decharut.
Today I will speak on the issue of PM 2.5 situation in Thailand and the weakness points in Thai government policy. I will start by updating PM 2.5 situation this year and then analyzing the policy obstacle, and then I will provide Move Forward Party policy suggestion. That is 3 main points I would like to discuss tonight. If you move back to January 21st, On that day, you can see that the Prime Ministry smile because PM 2.5 he thinks it's better, but I think maybe it's too good to be true, or maybe too early to be conclude like that. Because if you look at the PM 2.5 situation in Chiang Mai, you can see that it's start beyond above the standard on February, and it's become very high during the March. So this is the situation. Maybe government too early to announce the success, and it's also linked to some point that I will mention after. If you look at in terms of Bangkok during February and March, you can see that the situation is quite different from in the case of Chiang Mai. Since around the end of February, the weather condition in Bangkok still start to improve because of the wind direction has been changed. The southern wind from the Gulf of Thailand come to Bangkok, and then the air condition air situation in Bangkok is become better. But in case of Chiang Mai, you will see a different story for this year. From February 1st to the March of the 9th of March, you can see that for 38 days, 18 days of air quality in Chiang Mai is beyond the standards. And if you look at in terms of March, it's 9 days, the whole days that we have the record is above the standard, and you can see that it's become more red during the March. So the peak period of air quality problem in Chiang Mai and in the northern part of Thailand maybe not start yet. Maybe it's become during the April period, just like last year. And in case of Lampang, you can see that it's even worse than Chiang Mai. So the government attempt to reduce air quality problem in Chiang Mai may also have some meaningful, but it's not mean their success yet. But if you look at some other province very close to Chiang Mai, like Lampang, you can see much worse. In case of Lampang, it's already 35 consecutive days of above standard in terms of air quality, and you also see the 9 days above the standard, overall 9 days in March as well. So this is the situation. Is show that the air quality in the northern part of Thailand is not improved much. And this year is have another story that is in the northeastern part of Thailand. You can see that in case of Nong Khai province, 32 days above the standard in Feb until the 9th of March, and 7 days, I'm sorry, this is mistyping, 7 days in March is above the standard also. So the situation right now in Thailand is mean that air pollution problem is all over the whole country except the southern part of Thailand. So this is something that is become a new area that face this problem this year. If we compare between last year, which is very worst year in terms of air pollution problem, and this year, you can see that you can say something like it's improved a little bit. But in case of northeastern part of Thailand, you can see that it's become even worse. If you look at the hotspot in Thailand and other neighboring country, you can see that during February, the hotspot is still very low. That is also why during the January, the air quality problem is not terrible right now. And it's become more in February, and when it's become dry during the March, then the hotspot in terms of fly has been a lot during March, and you can see that the main part is still in Myanmar, and in February the another country that have this kind of problem that is in Cambodia, which may also link to the northeastern, the problem in the northeastern part of Thailand. So this is something that we have to keep in mind, that the fly problem in wildfire problem is not only in Thailand but also in neighboring countries. So we have to solve this problem altogether in the ASEAN level. But if we go back into the Thailand, we can also see nearly the same picture. That is mean that the fly has been increased during February and it's become peak during March. This is more in terms of weather condition, when the weather is become dry, and then the fly has been increased a lot. And if you look at the area that have the fly, you can see that there are two main areas. That is the conservative forest and then the reserve forest. So this is the main area that we have to solve this problem. And the concern is still going on because of the weather condition. It may become hotter this year and it's more drier also, and the weather condition is maybe longer until the end of May. So this is something that we have to keep in mind, that the air pollution problem this year may be up to May. And I would like to show you about the analyzing of the problem, but I just show you that we have the forum in the March of Chiang Mai, when we organize the opponent leader forum with the local civil society and local people. And we also visit Chiang Mai Fire Operation Center in order to see the obstacle in terms of control fire and in terms of control air pollution. And we also visit Op Khan National Park and the fire operation in Op Khan in Chiang Mai. On the left hand side, you can see that going into the area that have fire is not easy. It's very difficult because it's mountainous areas and it's difficult to go to access to the place that we have flies. And in some case, we need to have the thermal drone in order to analyze the fly direction and also the place that we have fly exactly. And we also participate in maintaining the fly protection strip, which for me I think is the most important protection mechanism that we can do right now. Because if you see on the left hand side, when the strip is wide enough, then you can control the fly. But if you cannot maintain this fly protection strip only for around 2 weeks, then this strip become full of these fuels, this die leaf. So we have to local people have to maintain this fire protection strip every 2 weeks. Okay, now I come to the weakness point. That is the weakness in terms of physical support against the fires. I will divide the area into main area. On the left hand side, that is the conservative forest, which run by Department of National Parks, and on the right hand side, that is the reserve forest, which take care by Royal Forest Department. On the conservative forest is around 74 million rai, but we have only 148 fire stations and also allow 5.4 thousand officers in terms of fire protection. So it means that one person have to take care the area around 13,000 rai, which is very big area. And you this person, some of these person get the salary only 500,000 Thai baht, and because the government think the fry has pen during January to May, so the salary can only pay for 5 months, so it's another 7 months they have to work on other job, something like that, or sometimes they find other new job, which is mean that the lack of skill in term of fly protections. And also the local village is also very important, but the government provide the budget 50,000 Thai baht for each village, but the number of village that get this support is less than 50% of the village that they should have in fly protection. And also they have the limit in terms of essential tool for fire protection. For example, in terms of blower, in fact, it should be allowed 2 person for 1 blower. One use the blower and another use another stick in order to clean the fire protection strip. But the government only have 6.5 person per 1 blower. And also in terms of drone, it should have the at least 1 thermal drone for fly station, but the government have only 7 station for 1 drone. So this is something that is quite limit in terms of resource. In terms of reserve forest is another story, because the government make the decision since the year 2021 that transfer the responsibility to the local administrative. And during that time, they set up the financial support framework. That is the small area you should get around 600,000 Thai baht. In middle area, in terms of fly protection, you should get 1.2 million Thai baht, and in large area you should get 1.8 million Thai baht. That is overall altogether that equal to 1 billion Thai baht, and the Department of Local Government also asked for 1 billion Thai baht. But the government only support for 50 Thai baht, 50 million Thai baht. So it means that instead of having 600,000 per district, you get only around 15,000 to 50,000 Thai baht for each district. So this is amount is very limited, and then the local people have very limited resource in terms of going to set up the fly protection strip, and also to maintain the fly protection strip. And in terms of fly operation, they also lack of training and technical support. So this is something that we have a big problem in terms of financial support. And the government already announced that they will provide 272 million Thai baht in March the 2nd. So you can see that what we really need only on the right hand side, that is around 1 billion Thai baht. And the government provide only around 207 million Thai baht in March, which is mean that maybe hopefully the end of March the people will get the money. So it's at least I can say that something like too little and also too late. So this is something that people already blame a lot in order to control the fire. They really need these budgets in order to set up the team and to help in terms of operation. It's also something like the fly in the sugarcane production area. You can see this new last month that Prime Minister shocked by 2 million tons of burnt sugar in 2 provinces, Suphanburi and Lopburi. But in fact, in terms of the whole country, the burnt sugar in this year is around 23.5 million ton. That is mean that 30% of sugar cane that's going to the sugar factory, that is around 30% of the sugar cane is burn sugar. And if you move back to the year 5 years ago, you can see that the government set up the target that this year should be 0% burn sugar cane. But in reality, it's 30% burn sugar cane. And when the Prime Minister shocked by this figure, he announced to coordinate to the sugar factory. Unfortunately, the sugar factory in the two provinces is already stopped buying the sugar. How to say, they close the sugar is the seasonal, so it's already stopped. So the Prime Minister start a little bit too late. And one is very important figure as well on the below that 12 sugar factory in Thailand is have less than 10% of sugar burn, less than 10%. On the opposite, 10 sugar factory have more than 50% of sugar burn in their factory. So it means that there are something of not the technology problem, because some can do this very well. The problem is more in terms of management and also the government law enforcement. So this is the recommendations. We would like the government to increase the support for the local administrative officer up to 3 million Thai baht per district. Maybe not this year, but maybe for the next year. It's also increase the support for Department of National Park. It should be improved the salary from 9.5 thousand Thai baht to around 11,000 Thai baht for fly officer, and also should have long whole year contract, and also should also provide the insurance for health and accident. They also should provide the adequate tool, for example like one thermal drone per station. It also should increase the financial incentive for no burning product. For example like increase the price premium for the burning sugar cane. Today they have the premium allows 100 Thai baht. It should increase to 200 Thai baht per ton, and also should implement the penalty for the sugar factory with high burn sugar cane, because it's already clear that some sugar factory can reduce the burn sugar down to less than 10%. It also should ship the 1,000 Thai baht rice subsidy. We this year we already provide 1,000 Thai baht per rice for rice subsidy, but they provide during harvesting. We suggest that shift the period of this subsidy to the land preparation and provide only if they have no burn land preparation, because different from the sugar cane, the rice will burn not by harvesting but by the period of the new crop of land preparation. So if we shift this kind of subsidy, so it means like conditional subsidy instead of unconditional subsidy that we always done before. And the last one is also choose provide the standard for no burning GAP, that is good agricultural practice, and also price premium for the local and non-timber forest product. Many areas that people burn the forest, they burn because they believe that this mushroom will grow faster if they burn the forest. So this is something that we also have also to communicate with the local people, and we also choose provide incentive for them. Last, I would like to go a little bit fast introduce that we as a Move Forward Party, we also set up the project called Move Forward Party Against Fire. We have 12 MP in 11 team set up to take care of 11 working area in 5 provinces within the northern part of Thailand. That is also equal to around 1.2 million rice. We set up the team in order to provide the essential tool for the local people. We work with the local people in fire protection strip. We also set up the information about the hotspot. If you have the hotspot, then twice a day we send to the local people in order to stop burning. We also have the thermal drone survey. This is quite important. You can see that on the right hand side, when you use the normal drone, you can see the smoke, but you cannot see the fly. But if you use the thermal drone, you can see that the shape and the flow of fly, which is very important in order to set up the direction that you are going to stop the fire. So it's quite important. We have 2 thermal drone, one for Chiang Mai and one for Tak. We also run this for the fire operation station, and we set up this kind of the the monitoring that, for example, like if we show that we find the fly and we can stop the fire in which time period, something like that. So this is something that we prepare, and we hope that we can learn from this 1 million rice how to stop this fly and how to do it better in terms of stop this fire and also to improve air quality in the northern part of Thailand. So thank you very much.
Before we move on to Kunwina, could you just tell us whether Move Forward is the only party that has an environmental think tank advising its leader? Are there any other parties in the government, opposition or elected, in the coalition that have this sort of resource, that put the sort of effort in that you've just shown us?
Yes, thank you. I'm come from Think Forward Center. Think Forward Center is some kind of policy think tank, but after the election, we set up the new team in each area. We call Kao. Kao is mean move. So in terms of environment, we have Kao Green. That is the group of MP who work on move the environment. So this is something that we hope that we can help to improve the situation. We also set up we also already sent the draft of the 4 bill. One is the Clean Air Act that she will also mention later, and we also set up the PRTR, Pollutants Release and Transfer Report, and also about the garbage management, and the last one that is about the climate change. So this is what we work in terms of environmental issue.
Thank you very much. So, Kunwina, can you bring us up to date on the legislation, what's going on to tackle the problem of polluted air?
Okay.
And it's complicated, and
Yeah,
you're not going to give us the 70-page
No,
presentation.
I'm not. But I was going to say,
you promised me, because I know it's complicated.
Yeah, could you also help me keep time, because I'm cognizant of Danny coming in at 8.
Yeah.
Could
so
you just
as
give
I
me
said,
a 5
Danny's
minutes?
coming in. When he appears, we're going to more or less grab him and make sure that we extract maximum value.
Okay.
But anyway, just relax and
just
carry on.
give me indication about 5 minutes before or something.
Yeah, if I know.
Okay, great, thank you. This presentation is a bit large. My name is Weena. I'm one of the co-founder of the Thailand Clean Air Network. Let me do a quick intro to who we are. We are basically citizens who want to breathe clean air. So we got together formally about 5 years ago. We looked at the problem. We said our focus is to find a comprehensive and holistic long-term solution to this problem. We come from different sectors, different industries. We are all subject matter experts in our own respective fields. We have academics, we have people who are professionals in their field, and we believe in a bottom-up approach, which means an inclusive approach rather than a top-down approach. So we have public health experts, we've got legal experts, we've got air pollution scientists, we've got economists, we've got finance people, we've got public communication, we've got quite a bit, and then we have quite a open and expanding network. So there are a number of private companies and different entities, small companies, SMEs, have been phenomenal in helping us actually collect a lot of the signatures we needed. Quick preface, the context is that Thailand actually has an avenue in its constitution to allow citizens to table legislation. And that's what we as a group ended up doing, because that's what Thailand needed. It doesn't have a Clean Air Act. And the requirement was 10,000. We actually got around 22,000 in finally. So I won't get into all of this because Ajahn Decharat has gone through most of it. So I'll glance through it really, really quick. Yeah, I think our team has actually, Ajahn Wisanu has actually done a social cost of air pollution in Thailand. And right now, just based on data in 2019, it's costing Thailand 10% of GDP, or 1.7 trillion baht. So not a small amount of money, okay? And this is just using the this analysis, which is subjective well-being analysis. I won't get into the sources, as you guys probably all know the sources already. As Ajahn Decharat was saying, it ends up happening across the country. So even if you're in southern Thailand, there are periods in which air quality will be bad too, unfortunately. So yeah, kind of hide away from all of this. We did look at it. Ultimately, what we're talking about is a big, huge structural problem. Thais are dying 1.8 years on average too early, prematurely, okay, because of air quality. First quarter of last year, one of the worst. We had 1.3 million Thais sick because of air pollution, right? But there's also a lot of underlying things, structural violence and cultural violence, right, that underpins a lot of this. And a lot of what Ajahn Decharat was talking about before actually talks about that. So how do we move this? How do we get a solution? So the way we've done it is we have taken sorry, I've got a bit of a cough today, the EU's consultative and legislative process to push for legislation. So we developed concept papers along the same lines. We have a white paper, we have a blue paper, and the green paper. What are the differences? The white paper talks about the overall issues related to the air quality problems in Thailand. The blue paper talks about the impact of air pollution. The most hefty part, which I brought you, which took us quite a bit of effort, and is the green paper. This is the green paper. It's over 700 pages, okay? And there's a reason for it. This problem is extremely complex. It involves so many sectors. And this green paper is a bit unique because it's multidisciplinary. So at the end of each chapter, it actually gives you the legal solution, the economic solution, and what civil society can do to solve this problem. And we synthesize and analyze everything. And then we also look at the perspective of the stakeholders. And the three major stakeholders is the government, it's civil society, all of us, when we take off our hats, we are civil society. And the last group, which is critically important, is the private sector and financial sector. What are the roles and responsibility of the private sector and financial sector in resolving this problem? I was asked to talk very quickly how we moved, and it was quite a bit of an effort to do this. I'll do it really quickly. So we started in 2019. We did huge stakeholder consultation. We started a change campaign since 2019. We're now into 6 years of this. You know, we went all the way out. We initially started approaching actually the private, the public health folks, going to them and saying, hey, this is a huge public health crisis. This is something Thailand needs to take into account. It's huge, and this is pre-COVID, by the way. We didn't have too much traction. We went all the way to the Thai National Health Assembly, hoping to make it a national issue at that point. Didn't quite reach it there, and so we decided, okay, that's not quite happening. So we ended up just moving, with developing the Clean Air Act. During COVID, we actually were one of the first groups to have done a digital roadshow, which is, we had hundreds of people actually joining in. We pulled stakeholders from different parts of the country, a lot of people from northern Thailand, northeast Thailand, people working in different facets, interested in this and doing something to share. We released our blue paper during that time. For us, it was really difficult because we had to actually collect signatures during lockdown. And during that period, to collect signatures, it had to be done manually, on paper. you had to go up to a Thai national and ask them for a copy of their national ID. Most of the time, people would say, "Who are you and why should I give it to you? Are you a hoax?" It was really difficult. But we had a lot of cafes helping us, a lot of businesses helping us, and they became our clean air stations to actually collect a lot of that. But our real game changer came in June 2021 when there was a change in legislation that supported electronic submission of signatures for Thai-led legislation. So finally, Thailand entered the 21st century. And that helped us because that's when the numbers really jacked up from 1,000 all the way up, and we did end up with 22. So we, by the time, it was only 2 months by the time we jacked up to over 10,000 by the time that we got that change came in. We did a lot of public campaigns. 2022 was a tough year because that was when we actually submitted the signatures in. And then I was told that we actually had to print all 20-odd thousand signatures on paper. Killed a lot of trees, even though the law required that electronic was acceptable, but when you submitted it still had to be on paper. And then we actually got support from Dr. David Ward. Some of you may know he's a UN Rapporteur on Human Rights and the Environment. That's because by then we had already drafted the Citizen-led Clean Air Bill and translated it to English, and it's sent to Dr. David Ward for him to review. And he had given us his endorsement and sent a video to the Thai government saying he really appreciates that this rights-based approach is the right way and can really make a huge difference in resolving this problem. So anyway, short and long of it, we kept going up to the government every so often to saying, what are you doing with it? We got 559 signatures of entities and individuals saying, hey, what is the government doing? We got nothing. By October, we completed the green paper. We spent a lot of last year actually doing a lot of campaigns. We had campaigns on the trains. We had big billboard campaigns that were on the Plan B campaigns and in shops and things. We did an art exhibition. We did a panel here for the first time. We spoke on TEDx. We went back up to the Prime Minister's office again in November of last November, because it's been 2 years and nothing's moved. Incidentally, too, we are also being invited as an advisor by the government. They have a strategic transformation office that was in the process of drafting the cabinet's own version, and we were an advisory to that. Basically, initially told them just take ours, but they wouldn't. So they took some elements of it, unfortunately not the most critical elements. Come 2024, that's when we found, so in January of this year, that's when all of a sudden everybody woke up because the cabinet had submitted theirs in and every other draft came in. So in total there's 7 drafts right now. We're the only citizen-led legislation. There's a cabinet draft, and the rest comes from different political parties. As Ajahn Desharat mentioned, Move Forward is one of them, the Democrat is another, and then there are parties affiliated with the current government that tabled as well. And right now, so that was us doing different things. Right now, what's happening is there is an ad hoc committee. It consists of 39 members, and by law, the citizens who submitted legislation were entitled to have a third of the members in that committee. Move Forward currently has 6 members, Democrat 1, and the rest comes from the parties that constitute the current government. So that's a breakdown right now. Short and long of it is that what we're trying to address is a very complex structural problem. But what we're seeing in the cabinet draft is keeping the status quo. And the status quo will not bring you to solving this problem, right? So I won't talk about our draft so much because I know we're short on time. Let me just talk very specifically on what the key differences are. Because right now what's happened is this, because there's 7 drafts by President, the cabinet draft is the main draft that everybody is used to deliberate on, right? What are the key defining difference then between the cabinet draft and the citizen-led draft? Ours is a rights-based approach. We elevate the right of every citizen to breathe clean air, right? Basically, the right to clean air is the right to life itself, okay? the government draft is a very state-based approach. It does not touch upon the issues of rights. So that's a really critical element. And why is it so critical? Because when you have that, don't forget, the right to a clean and healthy environment, which includes the right to clean air, has already been endorsed by the UN as a basic human right. Thailand is a signatory to the United Nations. We have already endorsed that. By not putting it in a legislation, we're not walking our talk, right? Legally, too, it gives you a much stronger basis for future litigation by anybody who's impacted from dirty air, right? So this is a really, really important issue to have. Okay. Another second thing, we are probably the only, the citizen-led draft puts a very strong focus on the vulnerable groups. Those are young children, or children in general, pregnant women, the elderly, the sick, and those who work out in the elements, because their health are a lot more vulnerable than the rest of us due to air quality, bad toxic air. Another critical element to it is we've actually created a responsible body, a one-stop shop body that will manage this situation. It would be governed by committees, of which half of the committees will be subject matter experts in civil society. And we're talking about policy making, regulation, implementation level at all three levels. It's co-management between the government or the state and civil society. That's critical, right? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, when things get bad, you've got the government going publicly asking everybody, hey, tell us what should we do? Formalize it, because there's so many people who know this and the issues are too complex. You need to have them there at the decision table. And I think that's where people don't understand, because oftentimes I hear people say things like, well, the problem in Thailand is too many laws. Yes, but not on clean air. Number two, the problem is implementation. Yes, this is why this is a game changer. You've never had this in Thailand ever before. Okay? And you do need a critical entity that's put in place to actually manage this holistically. Because right now, it's only the Pollution Control Department. The Pollution Control Department is an entity within the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment. It's a very small unit. The law that sets it up is a law that doesn't give them a lot of bandwidth to manage this issue, nor do they have the budgetary might to do it. Okay, they're very limited. Everything they do, they've got to work across ministerial bounds, which they cannot do, and they cannot do well, as we have seen now. That's the existing situation. We need to find a way to break through that. And the other problem, and the fourth contentious point, is a dedicated Clean Air for Health Fund. And that's another element we've put in there that's completely quite unique, because we've brought in the concept of a polluter pay principle. How are we doing this? Because we are adding on, this fund would be funded through an add-on tax. Similar to, if you're familiar with it, there's the Thai Health Fund, Thai Health Promotion Fund, that funds the Thai Health Promotion Agency. Very similar concept in that way. So it is not actually a burden on the existing state government coffers. And you can't have it, like Ajahn Deshalat was explaining, you see how long it took for funds to be released to deal with fire management? You will never have it released and done in time. You can't do it, and you can't be reliant upon the state. Plus, if you are reliant upon the state funds, you're actually, what you're doing, it ends up being taxpayer funding of a problem, right? Instead of being a polluter pay principle, it ends up being a taxpayer principle because we're paying for it. It shouldn't be the case, right? So the way we've done it is we're going to slap an add-on excise tax on anything that is polluting or causes adverse health impact. There'll also be funds coming in from fees and charges. There'll also be all sorts of other, and the only stick really critically in this legislation is related to transboundary haze. That's because the way it is, transboundary haze, yes, it has to be managed at a regional level, but you cannot rely upon ASEAN to do it. It's not well set up for it. It took 12 years for Indonesia to even sign up on it. And that current agreement doesn't have any teeth, right? So the way we're doing it is we're actually flipping the responsibility the other way around. So we say, if anybody pollutes transboundary across Thailand, it causes health impact into Thailand. We are in the 21st century. There is enough data, there is enough technology to verify where it comes from. the way we say is, you prove it's not from you. If that is your operation, you prove that it is not your operation. A lot of the big guys are saying, hey, they have full supply traceability. We believe you, so why are you so worried? If you can't prove it, we'll slap you with 2 million baht a day, max at 50 million. Why? Because that's the same level as the Singapore Transboundary Haze Act. If we don't do it, they'll start blowing pollution into Thailand. Simple as that. If all the countries start lifting up your barriers at the same level, you'll solve this problem at the same way. Ultimately, we will need to have a regional solution, but we're not the EU, completely different. We're not like the EMU, completely different. It is a different union, so it does not work yet, right? So this is another important part of it. How will the Clean Air Fund be coming from? Taxes, charges, fees. There'll be a deposit refund system, tradable permits, insurance, subsidies. It's a whole gamut of it. You can actually look at our legislation. There's a lot of material on our website that explains a lot of it. What it can be used for? A ton of things. Air quality monitoring and control systems. We're actually here to support private sectors who are unable to be able to transition to a more greener operation. If you qualified, you are eligible for support for this. What we're saying is there is no us for them, right? And we are cognizant that greening operation is not cheap. And particularly for smaller companies or medium-sized company, it is really difficult, right? You may not be able to have the financial means to do it. And that's exactly the role of government, to help transition a conditional subsidy at the time that's needed. It's also for damages to help vulnerable groups. You know, right now there's no environmental equity for those who are impacted by this or those who wanting to go through litigation. It's also for R&D. We're lacking in so much information and so much data. Right? It's also for working on economic cooperation, hopefully towards achieving regional cooperation, huge environmental cleanup that's needed around the country. It's a lot of issues, and actually supporting this entity that will be built up as well. And the way we're moving right now, we've got two paths. So there is a legislative path. We're part of the ad hoc committee. It's an extremely, extremely long path. I view it as going to Mordor. This is just the beginning of the journey to Mordor. We don't know whether we'll get to Mordor or not, okay? But the parallel path is a social movement path, and that's a path that we have also been moving along, right? So the actual social movement starts with acknowledging it, acknowledging the issue. You've got to learn and understand it. You have to have awareness. You exercise the rights, and you demand legislative change. Quick photos through some of the events that we've been doing through also with different religious groups, including the political KOIs. So we've gone up to every political party. This is an issue above politics, and said to them, explain what having clean air means to you as an individual. 4 people did. So we've used their videos. We've gone on mainstream media, social media, gone on trains, gone on billboards, done these art exhibition. We've got funding from Brown University actually to do this. Yes. So final closing remarks, quick. There is no us or them when it comes to this. There really is no us or them when it comes to air quality issues, because we breathe the same air, okay? Subject matter experts will sit at the decision table alongside the Thai state to bring about clean air, which is a game changer. This citizen-led Clean Air Bill incorporates economic incentives to help shape economic behaviors towards environmentally friendly production and consumption. So for consumers, for example, EVs, it can subsidize the prices of EVs for those who want to, right? Who want to get down there. And there will actually be a state body that's fully equipped with the right roles, responsibility, and funding through a dedicated clean air fund to bring about clean air. Very, very lastly, I love this quote from Carl Sagan, who says, anything else you're interested in is not going to happen if you can't breathe the air or drink the water. Don't sit this one out. You are, by accident of faith, alive in the most critical moment in the history of our planet. And what are we having now is we had, like I mentioned, we started a petition almost 6 years ago now. And this is an informal petition. It's not like the formal one that supports the legislation going to Parliament. But this is just to provide a sense of, you know, who cares about this issue. It's an outside force kind of way. We've only gotten 60,000 people. It's really dismal. There's 70 million people live in Thailand, okay? We are aiming for 1 million. I don't think 1 million is too much. Why 1 million? Because the largest public petition so far on anything in Thailand has been around 800,000. So 1 million speaks, okay? I was watching Lorax, it's funny, Dr. Seuss. And Dr. Seuss is very wise, actually. So in Lorax, there was this final quote from the Onceler who says, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. And that's true. So one of the journalists asked me today, what does it take to create political will, public will? That's what we're missing. This is our website. This is a link to our website, if that's easier for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So on that depressing note, we're going to go over to Dublin, to Danny Marks, who is going to give us a broader perspective, a regional perspective of what's going on, whether it's getting worse or better. Danny, can you hear me? There he is.
Can you hear me fine?
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for having me again. It's great to be back. I wish I could be there in person. So I'll actually be focusing today on one major aspect of it, of the issue, which is in terms of agriculture. So can you all see my slides now?
Yep, we can.
Okay,
All good.
Let me just. Okay. I'm just trying to share this for 1 second. Let me just share the screen. Okay. Yeah, my screen is shared, right? Okay. Just 1 second. Some issue with the screen sharing. 1 second. Okay. It's been a while since I've done the Zoom. So my talk today is based on a paper that I'm currently writing called "Polluting the Air to Feed the Animals." But just to set the scene, Bangkok and Chiang Mai, as you all know, once again, a terrible air quality. Chiang Mai earlier this month ranked worst in the world at one point. Last month, Bangkok was 9th globally. More than 10 million Thais have sought treatment for air pollution-related illnesses last year. It's deja vu. I wrote an article called this last year, the Bangkok Post, and unfortunately it's deja vu again this year. But once again, the same major causes of air pollution. And although there's a change in government, once again, the government's failed to address the underlying drivers. So you have similar issues. I mean, fortunately, it's not quite as bad as last year. I mean, one major reason is it's not an El Nino year, so it's not quite as dry and as hot, so the weather conditions aren't quite as bad. But still, I mean, if you look at any map right now, there's fires all over the region. Air quality is still a major issue throughout the country. So, I mean, I don't know what else was said earlier, but I mean, there are three major sources of air pollution: transport, industry, and biomass burning. So biomass burning is either through forest fires or the burning of crops, normally post-harvest, stubble, sugar, rice, or maize. So I will just briefly focus on the last one, given it's the largest contributor behind the region's spike in air pollution right now. There are three major crops: corn, rice, and sugarcane. So I will focus on the first one. So this contributes to air pollution not only through post-harvest burning, but also through clearing forests to expand maize production. I also add that the sources of forest fires are multiple. There's hunting, there's mushroom foraging, there's accidental fires, there's revenge fires, but agricultural expansion, this is what statistics have found, is the leading one. And so that's why it's very important to hone in on agriculture. And maize is a major crop. So basically, to set the scene, so we have human population, income growth, mass extinction and collapse of wild food supplies have increased global demand for meat production. So this is kind of the global picture. The negative impacts of animal feed production and air pollution are recognized, but many parts of the sector remain unregulated. And this is not only in Thailand, it's globally. And so maize grain, which is also, so maize and corn can be seen as interchangeable, are poorly regulated and grown extensively for animal fodder. And so Southeast Asia, other major producing region, crop is largely exempt from traceability measures with ecological societal effects. So I'll go into this more in depth, but just as a brief introduction, since 1980s, Thailand has cultivated maize intensively, become one of the world's largest producers. And here you can see how corn yields are now about 4.4 million. Estimates of 60% maize used to feed animal stocks. Millions of pigs and chicken are fed annually with maize. So it supports, there's also problem with maize is it also contributes to climate emissions. And then here you can just point out that 70% of maize is grown in the north, which is a very mountainous region, which I'll go back to why that's a problem. But to set the scene, the political economy of agriculture in Thailand it's very unequal in terms of land. Figures show that 10% own over 60% of private land. Contract farming schemes are largely unfair. That means farmers have high levels of debt, unfair bargaining power, unequal access to markets, exploitative price and terms, limited time to grow crops, and sometimes no contracts. So and many times they've been exploited because of these contract farming schemes. It's dominated by oligopolies or monopolies, very high unfair economic power. So high degree of vertical integration, but also close to the government supported them. State has supported the monoculture conversion through loans from the state banks and subsidies, and limited awareness and pressure by consumers. So given that issue, there has been a depoliticization of maize in Thailand. So maize is seen as a form of national progress and a contributor to GDP, but it is a political act. And so basically, this depoliticization has enabled maize to expand, but it also allows these agri-food conglomerates to exploit regional and global markets. And so they wield influence over environmental policy by emphasizing consumption rather than maize production. They devolve responsibility to small farmers, they deflect blames, and they influence the government to continue limited regulation of the sector. So here's corporate hegemonic power is a main issue here. So CP Foods is the world's largest animal feed producer. It's the 6th largest poultry producer. So with figures from 2022 said there's 20% surge in sales revenue. So they made $17.8 billion US and profits of over $400 million US. And so basically there's a power, this power is hidden between supply chains, as I'll show. And maize is the binding ingredient here. And so here you can see, for example, on the left, all the CP's business groups. And even within the agro industry, so for example, CP owns all the 7-Eleven stores, it sells its maize there, Lotus Plus, so the chicken, the pig, the swine sold there as well. But the environmental and social impacts are hidden and undocumented. So now I will go into basically what is driving air pollution from maize production, given this context. So I'll start at the local level. So last summer I went to Mae Cham, which is in Chiang Mai. Maybe some of you have been there. And it's been one of the epicenters of maize growing in Thailand. So it's a population of 60,000 people of various ethnicities. So Chiang Mai, Nan, those are some of the areas where there's been a huge proliferation of maize. So it's a very mountainous and forest area with ongoing forest loss. 90% designated as protected forest area, and less than 5% of the area is titled. So I'll give a very brief history of why maize has become such a big So why maize has grown so quickly there? So until the 1980s, there was rotational cropping. Opium was very big there. And then in the late 1980s and 90s, maize production began. So this was due to the revised national forestry policy. So there was more of the area was designated as national forests, but also this was a logging ban in 1989. So basically, these policies led to the government to curtail rotational cropping. So it basically means that locals cannot, were not allowed to grow rice and then leave areas fallow. And so basically this led to deterioration of soil quality, and basically maize was the crop that grew the best with these changing conditions, with these restrictions. But also there were new roads that were built, which enabled middlemen to come to these areas and introduce maize crops, and allowed farmers to have better access to markets. And they introduced contract farming schemes there. But maize particularly took off after the turn of the century, and this was particularly due to state policies. Ex-Prime Minister Thaksin's $1 million baht fund, low interest loans to the Bank of Agricultural Cooperatives, the Weather Insurance Fund. There's a price guarantee scheme. These were mostly in the 2000s. And agribusinesses also introduced higher yielding seeds. So all these kind of policies, the new seeds, led to a maize boom. And so when I went there last year, in August, the estimates were about 65 to 70% grow corn, and 80% burn the stubble because it's cheaper. This has led to social and environmental problems. And according to the mayor in the subject, there's been higher rates of lung cancer recently. This is anecdotal, and it's also lung cancer is a long-term issue, but it certainly shows that there are health problems related to maize production. And farmers said they would rather grow other crops, but many are mired in debt and receive constant income from growing corn. Basically, because of the lack of roads, there's only one road that goes through there, and the lack of also other stable income from other crops, it's basically these maize producers use their market power and the middlemen tied with them to persuade farmers or influence them to keep on growing maize. So one says, we don't want to grow corn, we have no other option. And so without land titles, they can't invest in the land, for example, irrigation, or are unable to switch to other crops for agroforestry. So this is what pushes them to continue to grow maize. And so this is what this, and so Maize Jam is it's kind of a microcosm of what's going on at the national level. Throughout the region, farmers are mired in debt, they continue to grow maize, clear forests, and burn stubble. And the major reason why farmers are in debt is unequal market power. Agribusinesses continue to reap most of the profits, but also increasing price of inputs and fluctuating market price and cycles of debt. So basically they're paying off previous year's debt. And this is due to the and then one reason is because of monopolistic market power and high degree vertical integration. And so basically farmers get very little of the money that's generated from the maize production. But also there's been incentives for farmers to switch. So basically, just to reiterate, there's been extensive support from the government, price support, subsidies, access to regional bilateral trade agreements. There are no agricultural emission reduction targets and policies. Maize is omitted from the government's climate action plans. But there's also, and this is built through close relations with politicians and senior bureaucrats through patronage structures. So for example, these agribusinesses are representatives on policy and advisory committees. They provide inputs into the government's price guarantee scheme. As one person I interviewed talked to, the government is a partner of CP. So the problem was, and the problem persists today, but in Thailand, even before now, it was clear there was already adverse environmental impacts. There was these bald mountains, such as seen in this photo, worsening air quality, but also awareness of this problem and growing greenhouse emissions from agriculture. So this put pressure on these companies. So there's this, so what they responded by is this idea of, instead of greenwashing or grainwashing. CP and other agribusinesses have stated that they've implemented traceability systems and they don't purchase any corn produced from burning. But according to local NGOs who I talked to, this is empty, without proof or evidence. There is no traceability. You cannot track the maize back. When civil society demanded third-party verification last year, CP refused. Also, a major agri-feed company, who I will protect for anonymity sake, stated that of the 300,000 farmers who grow maize, 40,000 of them are in their traceability system. So I asked them, what about the remaining 260,000 farmers? They said they cannot answer this. So agri-feed companies don't release any public data. It's difficult to pursue legal action. It's actually difficult to prove that they are responsible. But this is also due to weak laws. They're shielded by middlemen who also claim they don't burn, they buy corn from burnt areas, and the government also has not pressured them to release data or clean up supply chain. And so this basically limited public pressure is also due to low awareness from the public. So what one academic, Tom Slater, says is the intentional production of ignorance. The public has very low awareness of the problems of the meat that it is eating and how it's contributing to health problems within Thailand. And then the final piece of the pie is a piece of the picture is the transboundary level. So partly due to this pressure, agribusinesses have outsourced air pollution to neighboring countries. But it's also cheaper in these areas to produce it, but also in places like Myanmar, they can directly access the Chinese market. So Greenpeace did a study with Chiang Rai University using satellite data, and then they found that the area used for maize has expanded in both Myanmar and Laos significantly in the last couple of years. And then overall, it's expanded from 13 million rai to 18 million rai in between 2015 to 2023, almost a 40% rise. So hazardous air quality in these countries in the past 2 years. So this isn't only a problem, unfortunately, in Thailand. For example, tourists canceled their bookings in Luang Prabang last year. Vientiane has very bad air quality. Phnom Penh this year has been particularly bad if you look at air quality indices. So I don't have any data, but I would suspect there's a lot of agricultural expansion in Cambodia going on this year. Vientiane is bad right now too. But also because of maize expansion, according to this study by Greenpeace, 11.8 million rai of forests were lost. And a lot of this was through burning. So, and once again, this runs throughout. The government has been a key partner of these agribusiness companies. So for example, there's this economic cooperation strategy with other Mekong countries called ACMEX, which basically removes tariffs. And basically, these agri-feed companies also, due to increased demand, they need to import more and more maize from neighboring countries. And so these are millions of hectares of maize which they import. And unlike Singapore, there's no legal traceability requirements or responsibility for maize. And then similarly, ASEAN has not done much and so this is also linked to increased demand, this idea called meatification, as consumers, particularly in countries like China and Vietnam, get wealthier, the consumer preferences change, and there's more demand for meat. And so agri-feed corporations are increasing meat exports globally, helped by free trade agreements that the Thai government has negotiated with other countries. The main export markets for these meats are Asia and Europe. For example, in this photo right here, you have products sold in Singapore. Once again, there's limited consumer awareness overseas of the environmental impacts, of the health impacts of the products that people are eating. So as Phil McMichael, another academic, said, this is food from nowhere. People aren't aware of the impacts. I think Weena already talked a little bit about this, but basically, just to reiterate very quickly, the Pheu Thai so far failed to address this problem. Its version of the Clean Air Act is a paper tiger and mirage, and particularly when it comes to agriculture. Those who will be punished, the penalties are very little, and then those who invest or purchase agricultural products will be omitted from culpability. So only farmers will be punished, not agribusinesses whose impunity will exist. Will not hold agri-feed companies responsible at the transboundary level. It will only penalize overseas entities such as farmers and factory owners. So this distinction between who's punished and who's protected, once again underscores the close relationship between the Thai government and the corporations. So almost done, just a couple ways, some potential ways forward. You need to help basically farmers to find alternatives. I think agribusinesses should have this responsibility that if you're going to continue to grow maize, how can you do it sustainably? But yeah, so promoting teak and other forest products, trying to revive the Thai teak sector and forest sector, making maize imports more expensive, pricing in, for example, the health costs of importing maize. And then what can be done at the international level is a traceability system. So the EU now has this major deforestation regulation, but unfortunately maize is not included in this. I mean, palm, soy, and a lot of others were, but not maize. Other countries should follow suit, US, Australia. Of course, land reform is a long-standing issue, but that would certainly help here if farmers had access to their own land. They could invest in their land and be easier for them to grow alternatives. Reform of monopoly law, as some people I talked to, like some people I said, I don't want to eat, meat from 7-Eleven or Lotus, but I have no other choice. So give consumers more choices in what they can eat. Decentralization would certainly help in terms of laws, in terms of fire regulation, but in terms of also agriculture. And then also raising consumer awareness. So for example, something called a cancer corn campaign. And so briefly to conclude, this situation will unfortunately repeat itself next year. So the deja vu will keep on going on unless the underlying sources are addressed. Burning arises from maize production is a major cause of it. Solutions are certainly available, but the government has thus far failed to implement them, likely due to close ties to agribusinesses, and therefore maybe need impetus from other actors. So I'll stop there.
Okay, Danny, thanks very much for that. Dum, can you get the microphone in position? But I know that you've got very limited time, so I'm going to give a little space here for some questions directly to you whilst they're setting up the microphone. Last year, we had the worst air pollution in Thai history. You talked about the El Nino effect. You've talked a lot about maize production tonight, and that's obviously very important. The fires that NASA were detecting were maize plantations in Shan State, but also Laos was on fire in a way that had never been seen before. And this was due to the burning of forest floors to create rough grazing for cattle, basically to supply meat demand in China. Now, we don't know yet how this year is going to rank, because we're still about 1 month off, peak burning period. So next month we'll have a better idea. Is it your impression that the Lao problem has diminished a little bit this year, or do you believe that is still going on and it has yet to kick in on the transboundary haze front? What's your take on
That's a good question. I actually spent a month in Laos in December doing research on this issue. So it's certainly not all these agribusinesses. It's certainly not all maize. Other factors are cassava. Cassava is a substitute for animal feed, but also, as you said, cattle. So they're basically, it's something almost called a burning transition. And so farmers, because of the high price of cassava, also because of this demand for livestock, there's now an import quota from China for Laos to import cattle of a certain size to China, that basically this gives them an incentive to clear forests to grow agriculture. So in some ways, this transition has already went through last year. And so that's one reason you're seeing a little bit less burning in Laos this year. But in Cambodia, I would suspect there's actually, the air quality is worse this year. So I think there's something going on. I mean, I don't unfortunately don't have any data on that. But generally in Laos, it's not as bad. And I think, as I said earlier, the El Nino, but also some of the forests were already burnt. So in some ways, that makes it a little bit better this year.
Okay, there is a microphone there, so if anybody wants to ask a question of Danny, jump up. If you're not going to do it, I'll ask one. If you think about the Great Corn Belt in the US, it's vast, and they push these huge machines through it. They cut the corn, and they basically pulverize, they shred it, and the leftovers go back into the soil. They're reabsorbed. Mm-hmm. In Thailand, this isn't possible because of the investment that's implied, this particularly for sugarcane, but also for corn. Secondly, in northern Thailand, these hilly areas that you're talking about, you can't get these machines in. So it becomes very difficult. And this is very, very vulnerable terrain up there. If you degrade it, you've lost it. You're going to create a desert. So the people that are doing this are going to lose their environment apart from anything else. But if you go back to this issue of the correct handling of harvesting, is there a case for getting the government to say, right, we'll supply the machines, we'll put them out there, you know, form a cooperative, do something very constructive and proactive? Are you aware if these kinds of solutions have been looking at, rather than mopping up after all the smoke's gone up, just actually taking steps to make sure you don't generate it or you reduce the generation of smoke? Are you aware of any efforts on that of that kind?
I am not. I mean, I think you're correct. I mean, you're correct. Though there's certainly ways to still grow corn without all the burning. I mean, there's ways of rotational cropping. There's also collecting the harvest stubble, trying to convert it to other things, biochar. But the government instead is still remain proactive. And I think, to be credit to the Chiang Rai provincial government, they've had this war room this year, which is actually open to the public, and they have they have a map of using satellite data. Like, this is a red dot where you're not allowed to burn, the green dot. And so basically you have to ask permission, and they don't burn. But I think recently, unfortunately, they've been overwhelmed. I think that worked earlier, but now because there's so much burning, it's hard to maintain it. But I haven't seen this movement for really more sustainable maize production. And I also think agri-feed companies could do a lot more to try to encourage that, instead of just deflect responsibility onto farmers. I mean, actually, instead of just saying they have a traceability scheme, well, I mean, actually find solutions for these farmers to continue to grow maize if that's what they need it, without burning. And especially in these other countries, you don't have that, and it's much easier because there's much more hidden there. It's much more easier to deflect responsibility.
Okay, so Martin, is that a second question? All right, if you can go to the microphone. So we'll take two questions and be concise, because he's on a time limit. He's got about 5 minutes left.
Yes.
Martin.
Thank you very much, Dominic, and hi, Danny. Good to see you. Martin Mensky-Stalling from Chiang Mai University. So my question actually relates to your point, because this is something we get asked very often. Couldn't you just collect the biomass somehow and then not burn it? But isn't there a bigger issue in terms of an ecosystem on the mountain slopes, that corn is just the wrong crop, full stop, on 70% of the land where it's grown, at least? Do you agree with that? You have a comment on, because you mentioned also solutions are to introduce teak and other agroforestry and products. So it seems to me that, what's your view on this? People saying corn is just the wrong crop because it's a seasonal crop.
No, I agree with you. I mean, corn. For hundreds of years, corn was not grown in this area. I mean, it's only for a few decades now. I mean, so you had rotational cropping with rice, and that was there for a long time. But then also, I mean, I think also people tried to provide a number of different alternatives: fruit trees, avocado, bamboo, teak. So yeah, I mean, farmers don't have to grow corn. It doesn't all have to go to animal feed. There's certainly other options out there for farmers to make strong, sustainable incomes. And also, I mean, if you think about climate demands, and then these products are much better in terms of carbon emissions as well.
Yeah, I talked to Highland agriculture experts, and they're basically saying corn is just not the right crop there because it destroys soil and water retention and everything. So we just need to move away from the idea of corn, I think. Thank you very much, Danny, for confirming that.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree with you.
Singing to the choir, I think. Is that Bob?
Yes, thanks,
Yeah.
Dominic. Yeah.
Bob Fox.
Yep, thank you. I'll be very brief. My name is Bob Fox from the Joint Foreign Chambers of Commerce. There was a very, very short token consultation period for the official government version of the Clean Air Management Act. So I did a quick Google translation, improved it, spoke to about 5 or 6 people to consult with them, and then wrote a fairly detailed submission. I found a number of astonishing omissions in the draft legislation. there's a whole lot, so let me focus on one. And that is, as you've had some regional experience, there's not a single mention in there of the transboundary haze agreement, which took about 10 years to put together. Okay, so it has no teeth. It has problems with extraterritorial reach. This draft legislation makes an effort to have extraterritorial criminal penalties, but good luck with enforcing them. However, it completely ignores the idea that there could be some mitigation outcomes that might be beneficial through this through this regional agreement, but without a single reference to it or any idea that it's going to be part of the arsenal looking forward. What is the reason for that? Is that part of the conglomerates that are putting pressure on? Why would you not mention it at all? It seemed extraordinary to me.
I mean, I think you have a good conjecture. I think also, I mean, the idea of animal feed also, I mean, ties into GDP targets. I mean, in certain ways, it's good for the economy, but it certainly hides the human health costs, environmental costs. But yeah, I mean, I think also it's these close ties. I mean, Seta, one of his first meetings was with the big tycoons as soon as he got elected. So I think that certainly speaks something. I mean, I think Weena can probably add there. I don't know if Weena wants to add anything.
Okay, that was just one focus. So thank you, Dominic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I think we can let you go, Danny. Before you do, could you explain why you're in Dublin and not the University of Singapore or Chulalongkorn or somewhere useful?
Maybe I don't have to breathe in the bad air. I don't know. Dublin's a good place.
Keeping your lungs clean, is that the reason?
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for inviting me. I better go.
Okay,
yeah,
Danny, many
follow
thanks.
Up with anybody. All right, take care. Bye.
So that was highly irregular to stick questions in the middle, and I apologise to you, Inga. So maybe let's have a chat about what you think the private sector could do to mitigate and help these problems.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation. My company, South Pole Group, is not widely known. We are very active in the carbon market, in the carbon credit market. What is a carbon credit? A carbon credit is a financial reward for creating positive impact. So, one approach is through regulation. We can, of course, try to penalize or regulate, bad behavior. Or, in this approach that I think is also working very well in the private sector, is we reward positive action. It draws people into the equation. And, yeah, my presentation.
Do you have a presentation?
I send it to you.
Yeah, has he got it?
Oh, yeah.
This is past the presentation.
FCCT something.
Okay, Tom, I'll resend it to you. You just keep talking.
Okay.
And we'll sort this out.
I have it here. So I'm going to basically just talk you through a little bit now, and then hopefully get my slides later in the presentation. So when we think about the haze problem, I think what we need to start with is a thorough analysis of the problem, like the root causes. And on that, I don't need so many slides because the ones who have spoken before me, they have shown really good analysis. I wanted to share with you 2 other slides from a data analyst, a Thai data analyst working for a tech company in California, who has used an AI model to do a factor analysis on the contributions to haze. And according to her analysis, the main contributors are, yes, the open burning of ag waste and forest waste. And she's done kind of like an interesting analysis that shows that fires within a vicinity, within a radius of 100, 300, and 700 kilometers have almost equal contribution to the problem. Now, which means that by nature, haze is a transboundary issue, which also means that a Thai jurisdictional approach only alone cannot work to really solve the problem. It's a partial solution, but it needs to be bigger, right? Other factors actually include traffic and weather circumstances, like the direction of the wind. No? Oh yeah, perfect. So here are my slides, and yeah, just read that. Okay, wonderful. That was exactly what I was just talking about. No? So here, these are basically the factors that allow us to predict haze. No? And though you see, it's basically forest fires within a larger radius that have which means basically 2.5 p.m. travels far. No? And then, of course, we have things like traffic. No? So I already mentioned this. So here's basically an analysis of a distance and a scenario analysis of what would happen if we were able to reduce hotspots, forest fires, right? And what we see is that we need massive reductions, no? Of basically reducing fires by 90% to get health quality to moderate levels. And we need to cover a radius of 700 kilometers at least in order to get there. No? So that's basically the need for a transboundary approach. No? And the second is the enforcement capacity of Thailand in cross-boundary affairs is very limited. That means an approach that is based on positive rewards is more likely that works through supply chain and through the relevant supply chain. And Danny spoke extensively about the maize corn supply chain, but we also know it's rice and we also know it's sugarcane. No? That means we need to create positive rewards in these supply chains together with the likes of the agro-industrial companies to work with farmers to change practices. And we believe that it's a market-based approach that can work best. Now, I want to give you one example of a market-based approach that we have tried successfully in Thailand. And it involves basically the use of electric buses on the streets of Bangkok. You've maybe seen those dark blue buses, no? But those were the result of a collaboration between Thailand and Switzerland. Vicky is here, to put about 20 million euros through carbon markets to motivate bus operators to use electric buses on their routes. Now, what is the secret sauce for success? No? So it was to some extent, it was regulation, but around the design of a market-based environment for carbon credits, right? But it all starts with getting the right people together. And I think this is uniquely true, right? We have to understand the problem. We have to understand who has responsibility, and we have to understand who can change the outcome. No? And get everyone at the table, and then we're talking about, literally, sounds very capitalistic, how can we basically create a benefit for everyone, versus distribute a cost. You know, if you sit in a restaurant and it's time to pay the bill, nobody wants to pay, right? But if it's sharing a cake, right? Sharing a cake is very easy to negotiate. No? So that's kind of like when we on this positive world, what happens, right? So we managed to do that. This took 3-4 years, so it doesn't happen by itself either, right? And then coming to an agreement. Then the next one is the benefit that is being created here in terms of tons of emissions reduced needs to be transacted at a reasonable price. And that's often where carbon markets nowadays fail a little bit. Prices are too low. But I can say this transaction, because it was a sovereign transaction and sovereignly backed carbon credits and the generosity of Switzerland, that we transacted at a price for $30 or more per ton of carbon credit. And for that price, that's a lot of money to finance solutions such as electric buses and the charging infrastructure that needs to be put in place that does not exist, that did not exist last year to pull this off. No? Then, of course, I said it does require a supportive regulatory environment, no? That recognition. But it's a regulatory environment that is about the accounting of positive outcomes. No? Not a regulatory environment that punishes, but a regulatory environment that rewards. No? But it does need regulations. No? When we have that in place, solutions are readily available. The technology, it's literally a positive regulatory framework and rewards, pulls in solutions, pulls in technology. Factories are being built to make batteries or to make electric buses to benefit from these incentives, from these positive rewards. It works, right? Now, if we translate this to haze, now, first, we must recognize the connectedness of the problem. And I think Danny made a great case in explaining to us where the problem comes from and who the involved players are. No? So we have to have that understanding and that connectedness as a condition, as a precondition to change. No? We must also understand how the physical systems work. We must understand that basically that corn might not be a good crop, but that burning the egg waste is an even worse idea because it destroys the water retention capacity of soil. It reduces the future productivity of soil. So we must understand these physical systems. No? And then, on the basis of that understanding, we can then come up with the solutions that work, of which there are many, no, that exist. And then, what is the impact that we can create? No? So there's a study that shows that if Thailand, in its main supply chains, agricultural supply chains, adopted sustainable, regenerative, haze-free practices, Thailand could reduce 60 million tons of CO2 emissions per year. And that, by the way, has roughly a financial value of, I would say, $1 billion every year. That's 30 billion baht. 30 billion baht to fight haze. No? That comes from other participants in the carbon market, no? When it operates at scale. Though it seems to me that it's a, let's say that it's a fairly realistic solution. I want to kind of like show how what one of those solutions looks like. No? We have an increasing number of corporates, this is now corporates, but governments I know are also interested, agricultural companies that in their supply chain and in their net zero reporting look at their whole supply chain, including their so-called scope 3 emissions, right? And they're very keen to do projects in these agricultural supply chains. They're very keen to get, like, basically pay for haze-free corn or maize production. No? And I just hold it, basically very firmly in my belief that agro-industrial companies in Thailand are basically convincible to engage in such a system if at the end of it is a positive bottom line. No? So that's kind of like our thesis. We are building the case right now. We see very early indication. I see more and more startups that provide solutions in this space, but it's not yet at the scale that we need. But my hope is that, as this tracks more, as the carbon market becomes a bit more prominent in this space, that we can move forward on this kind of intervention. My view is that when it comes to in Thailand, emission reductions in agro-industrial supply chains, the reduction of haze is the biggest opportunity. No? And I would tell that to any party who is in government, hoping kind of like that they have enough kind of like sense to understand that this is a benefit to the economy and to people. Thank you.
Right, the microphone's already working, so anybody who wants to ask a question, please jump up. Now, what you talked about engaging with the agro-industrial companies who are clearly key to this. I mean, they're not well represented here tonight, and that should be acknowledged, so be careful how you attack them. But what success have you had engaging with them? And let's leave the names off for the moment. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's literally everyone is already engaged, but nobody wants to talk about it because engaged curiosity, exploration, business opportunity is one thing. Having held their feet to the fire, accountability, pressure, response to pressure, they're very shy to that. No, that's kind of like that's our observation. No, but the good thing about the private sector, it responds to money, right? It does not respond to maybe a noble cause. Now, that is not within the framework of things, which is unfortunate, but it basically, I'm a realist enough to know, that it's kind of like how the world works. But we do see kind of like, if we can show that there is now a value for doing the right thing, people come to the table. And I've seen it since I arrived here in Thailand 17 years ago. I can maybe a little anecdote. Our first client group were the starch farmers, the starch producers, cassava producers, who had these massive lagoons with the most smelly wastewater you can imagine. We came and we said, if you invest in biogas, if you take your wastewater and you take out this organic load and turn that into biogas, we'll pay you for every ton of carbon that this reduces. And the result today is that every starch farm has a biogas facility. When I came, in my first presentation, I started with look at the melting polar ice caps, and I could tell they were completely not getting me. But when I said, we'll pay you €8 per every ton of CO2 that you're reducing, they understood me. And it did not take long, it took a year, and they were very educated about how this market works.
Right. So to play the devil's advocate, the agri companies will say we're producing cheap food that people want to consume, and that's the way it is. So the concern would be if you start interfering with this and placing restrictions on, it's going to be inflationary. You're going to start putting up food prices, which obviously governments don't want.
No, the cost of sustainable practices are absorbed through the carbon price, not the food price.
Right.
That's the same. So basically, and that's why it works. Because on the food side, they feel that they're competing maybe with others. There's a cost pressure, but by putting a value on something that's related, we can open up this opportunity, because we are staying away from exactly that implication that you have outlined.
Right.
So not if it comes at a cost, then it is, unless it's regulated, unless it's a cost that's literally imposed on everyone that they're competing with. In this global food market, very, very difficult to get binding agreements around that. Look at fossil fuel subsidies; it's a very similar thing. So that's why I think basically a regulatory cost-inducing approach has a lower chance of working or takes much longer than positive rewards for positive outcomes.
Okay, so you've mentioned gas from starch, and that's a success story. Can you point to any other success stories in Thailand or this part of the world in food production?
Well, I think in food production is really the new topic. If you look at the international climate negotiations, and I've been to all of them literally. My first climate conference was the first COP in Berlin in 1995. The topic of food and climate was not on the agenda, right? Energy and climate was on the agenda from the very beginning, but it speaks to the political influence of the agricultural food industry to have managed to stay out of the conversation for so long. But I mean, look at even in the EU, agriculture is the most powerful lobby. The EU is a redistribution mechanism for agricultural subsidies. So no surprise, right? So I mean, compared to agriculture, the energy lobbyists are kindergarten people, right? The agriculture people, that's real power. But they are coming to the table. Why? Because agriculture, and this is, by the way, also a driving force here, they now understand that the effects of climate change attack their business model, because they feel how droughts or flooding and fires attack their bottom line. And now they realize that they need to be part of the solution, because otherwise the basis of their business is going away. And I think ultimately that's the only reason why they're coming to the table.
All right, so if we go back to the way food is produced, the maize production, the classic stuff, basically it's exploitative. It's taking advantage of this unrepresented element, which is about 30% of the workforce, basically. These people, the sort of thing you're discussing is complete pie in the sky to them. They are only concerned about feeding their families and a really desperate situation. How do you undo that kind of thing?
It's, in the decarbonization of the planet, the problem is always the same. Renewable energy has a higher capital cost compared to fossil energy. No? A renewable energy, you have to buy the panel, and after that the sun shines for free, right? Electric buses, no? The purchasing cost of an electric bus is 30-40% above a normal bus, including the charging infrastructure, because of the cost of the battery. But then once you have it, no more gasoline, right? Then you have like that cheaper and cheaper solar power. And in agricultural practices, it's the same. And I think Danny made that point. No? Farmers have no access to capital. No? If a carbon market can solve that problem, if carbon can unlock access to capital, aka machines, that can do tilling or whatever, right? Or if there is a service industry that provides it for them, we solve that problem the same way we solved it when we scaled renewable energy.
Yeah, but is it realistic? I mean,
I think, as I said, I see it
great.
happening on a small scale. But we are very, very early into the journey, and I think other countries are a bit ahead. Farmers in Europe or in the US, they don't have that constraint. They're already using the corn stem to make biogas, to make feed, to make other things because they have machinery, right? And that was the same, renewable energy started in countries with access to capital. No? In countries that do not have that access to capital,
sorry, we're getting
it's
a bit
harder.
of chatter here. If you could just keep it down, because
Yeah.
we're here to listen to them. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so so basically, we solved the problem in many other countries, and now we have to solve it here, taking into account the particular situation of the political economy and the agro-industrial landscape inside of the region.
Okay, I just want to go back. Are you waiting to ask a question? You're just hovering. Just hovering. Okay. Hover happily. Veena, I want to go back to you. You're struggling to find the law, to create a law that will be effective. The big problem is that people don't respect laws, particularly in this part of the world. I can think of any number of things that are illegal and go on day in, day out. So the sorts of things that you're talking about, are they enforceable? How do you stop people burning? It's part of the agricultural cycle. How do you actually stop people doing that? How do you enforce it? Who will do it? Will they be paid off? All these very practical details. Never mind Laos, where there is absolutely nobody to enforce anything.
Maybe I didn't make myself very clear enough. In this legislation, it's full of economic incentives.
Right.
There's more carrots than stick. We don't believe in, honestly, how are you going to go around and monitor every fire that's being lit? It's not possible.
Yeah.
It's physically not possible. They've learned the lesson in the US when they started it with a command and control approach. A command and control approach is costly, it does not work, right? That's the reality of it. So this legislation is very incentive based. So, so it provides the right incentive. So, for the agro guys, it's like, hey, either you pay or you adjust your production. You've got a choice. We're not forcing you. We're not forcing you. You can, if you want support through this, you can. If you want to transition, you're not able to, and you're eligible for it, you're able to do this. What we're trying to say is we're trying to support you through in an environment where you're facing globally anyway. You continue trading into the EU, into the US markets, into the global north, you will have to be responsible for your supply traceability. We are actually transitioning to help you be able to do that better. But if you don't want to, that's fine. But I think a lot of people get a bit stuck on saying, well, if you increase costs to businesses, all they'll do is a pass-through straight to consumers. Hang on. In the same industry, margins are going to be very similar, right? So, citrus paribus, if one company decides, hey, I'm not going to change their operation, come hell or high water, it's your choice. You'll be slapped with the higher taxes anyway because you're still importing these polluting machineries in. Those who are will be eligible for the subsidy. Citrus paribus, what means is that the cost basis of your competitors is going to get more and more competitive. Off the same margin, they're going to be pricing their products at a price that's more competitive than you. I mean, think of the case of China. If you think being environmentally friendly doesn't work, wouldn't we not have any companies left in China? The transition in China was not easy. It was really hard. A lot of the companies actually stayed on. For them to have transitioned, they paid a lot of money. I think the smart thing the Chinese government did do, I mean, they do a lot of smart things, but their backs were pushed against the wall because they, citizens were not having this anymore. Since 1990, when they entered the WTO, China literally sacrificed the environment for economic growth, and they've hit the wall on this, right? People were not taking it anymore, and it was citizens. I mean, for my friends who lived in Beijing during that period, they were meeting up every single week, coming up with solutions, coming up with ideas. And ultimately, I honestly think, I mean, I'm speaking to people in China, they're telling me the same thing. I think the Chinese government were actually concerned with Tiananmen too. They don't want that to happen. So they were very smart. They had the data. They released it to civil society, transparent data. And civil society became micro-reporters. So you've outsourced the monitoring and evaluation part of it completely, to the point where in China, when there's, or in the case of factories, definitely, because they could not control the local environmental guy who was being paid all the time to close his eye on what's happening. So the way they did it was they released the data. It was all completely transparent out there. Civil society was able to pull it all together through an app that's so easy to follow that you just look up a map and you see, oh, something's polluting near where I live. What is it? And then it has all the data of what they're polluting, what pollutant it is, how long, when have they been in violation, and people literally were commenting, to the point where now in China, actually all the government agencies, the environmental government agents are going and monitoring, inspecting these factories. The inputs from citizens ends up being part of the key performance indicator. So it's all transparent. Like, they can't even take money under the table anymore, literally, because it's so out in the open. So you're shining a light into something that was really dark. And that actually gave the government a lot of backstop, because now they can say, hey, you don't really want to change, but people are making noise and we can't say no to them. So it's very smart. I think it's a very smart way of doing it, right? So yeah, I think what I'm trying to say is the economic incentives are there for you to do the right thing. And some of the money is used to help support products that should be, for example, EV cars is not affordable for a lot of people. Supporting that, or public transport. There's so many things you could do to support more greener consumption, more greener production. And finally, maybe we might actually have environmentally friendly stuff that won't cost us the shit on our backs. Because that's where we're trying to achieve. Yeah, so I hope that answers the question.
Ingo.
Yeah, just to points to what you said. On this kind of transparency, the supply chain stuff. I think another driver is, let's not forget that I think 2028 is when the carbon border adjustment mechanism will kick in, which is a cost of imported carbon into the EU. And all of the big companies say they export to the EU, though it's completely on their radar, right? And it means, so they have to prove the kind of the embedded carbon, the scope 3, and unless they take other measures, have to pay the European carbon price on these embedded carbon emissions, which is right now about $80 a ton, right? So there is a massive price signal. No? So, and it's supply chain driven. It's not by the regulator, but I would actually say it would be very enlightened by the government, like if they create a regulatory framework that is already conducive to action, to actually help their companies avoid that cost or reduce that cost in their export business. And on China, I mean, electric mobility, you cannot buy a non-electric motorbike in China. They just said, no, 99% of electric buses are China. BYD is now the biggest producer of electric cars. BYD is setting up a factory in Thailand. So China is like what you rightfully say. They're now on the other side already of this green transition, with the exception of food. Like, though they are using other countries still, basically like to produce food and leave the pollution like somewhere else, which is not right. I believe fully that, but it's also possible to have that conversation with China, because I think they're already, like I said, on the other side of that. It's just basically takes a little bit leadership to push that agenda as well.
Just want to add a bit on, I think you mentioned about farmers, right, on the ground. This is anecdotal, but I did go down into the sugar cane to speak to farmers. And you're right, I mean, they're transitioning because honestly, they can't find the labor required to actually do the harvesting. I mean, we're an aging society. Where do you find? Some of these farmers actually pay a year in advance, and they've got people doing no-show. What do, right? So they do see an imminent need for it. But the problem is, don't forget, our farmers are the most highly indebted group in Thailand. Right? They're the poorest, one of the most highly indebted groups. But the reality on the ground, when I asked this farmer to say, so how do you mechanize? Like, where do you find the funds? And the funds right now are coming from the sugar mills. But unfortunately, the way they've done it, I was shocked. The way they've done it. In Harvester, it's brand new, it's 12 million baht. It's a lot of money. Secondhand, we're talking about 5 to 6 million. It's super expensive. I was talking to this farmer and just adding on like all her finances. She has like, I don't know, a 4th grade education. The mill gets her to do a joint and several guarantee with 2 other local farmers. She herself, look at all her debt. She has 20 million baht on debt. I was shocked. Like, that's a lot to be indebted, right? For someone who's like leased her land with a 4th grade education. I'm like, how is she going to make ends meet? And it's all going back, she's owned to the same farmer, and it's for an equipment. And if sugar cane, you're only using a harvester for like 6 weeks or so. Makes no sense. She can't monetize it any other time. She said it's not worth it. Like, this needs to be some kind of a leasing model or a co-op model. It needs to be a business there. And that's what we're hoping what we're doing through this fund will actually support going forward, because there needs to be a solution. And currently, the burden is being put on the weakest member of society, unfortunately.
Yeah. You talked about the EU taxing carbon, so that's really good for hitting up people who make steel, and that they've produced steel and they've cheated and it's polluted and everything, and it's not up to our standards. They've wiped out the European steel industry. There's a big row going on in the US at the moment. But what do you do with that kind of model when you're talking about regional suppliers? I mean, we don't have in ASEAN that kind of mechanism. It's not there. The EU is so far ahead of everybody else that is it realistic to talk about that kind of thing?
I mean, I'm not sure what percentage of agricultural output of Thailand gets exported to the EU. But just the fact that the EU is doing it forces these companies to put these systems into place already, right? Even though if it's like just 20% of their market. And my hope is kind of like that this is enough of an impetus, this first 20%, to reform them. Example, the introduction of quality management systems in the 80s. Basically, European buyer of products from Southeast Asia said, we're getting so much stuff from you that is not to a defined quality. We want you to introduce like ISO 8000 quality management frameworks. And otherwise we cannot buy from you anymore. And that, though it was supply chain induced, and it led to a massive transformation of quality management. There was an industry up and running in Thailand in no time. And of course, if you introduce a quality management system for your European customers because they demand it, no, then you have a quality management system that you can use for the rest of your customers as well. No? So it was this kind of transformation, and I think with CBAM, so basically getting systems in place to value carbon will have the same effect. No? It leads to the introduction of these systems in these companies, and it puts on their kind of like top management agenda the need to manage that as an issue and that awareness. No? But of course, the more participants such a system has, the better.
Yeah.
No? Yeah. I'm not sure, I don't have a theory yet on how it's going to roll out regionally, but I think anchoring around the CBAM of Europe is a good start, and it's going to keep us busy for the next 3-4 years.
Yeah, and of course it has worked in terms of food export quality. You cannot put in the sorts of contaminants that were going in 20 years ago if you want to export chicken to Japan or whatever.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think in food production quality, we're already there. No? Like if you look at the Thai FDA, I used to have a small food company myself, no? And it basically, you know, if the Thai FDA works to the level of like European FDAs or the US FDA or Japan, right? Very high quality, cold chain, hygiene, I mean, labeling, everything. No? We extend that to carbon.
Good. Question. Can you identify yourself?
Hi, good evening. My name is Han. I work for Impact, which is Sustainability Advisory. My goal is to look at business models that support green investments in Southeast Asia. So my question is, you know, looking at, and I worked a lot with sugar industry in, say, Vietnam. The agriculture waste, the reason why people burn it because there's no value to it. So if you put a value to it, people wouldn't burn money, right? So I want to ask a question of what kind of business model, what kind of incentives have been put in place, or have we looked at it, assessments for Thailand, where the agricultural waste has some value? Say, you know, sugar, and to be honest, when we work on this industry with sugar bagasse and into, you know, using bagasse into energy, so many competitions for the value because then it become animal feed. You know, I worked on biofuels in New Zealand. There's so many competition for it that it's, you know, you don't see people burn it. So my question is, what kind of other values that we have looked into this? What kind of incentives the government can do to improve the values for the waste, quote unquote? In fact, we call it byproduct. We don't call it waste. So I'm just curious in Thailand what has been looked into, what else is needed for this?
Yeah, thank you. I think we have to make the difference between between the major crop of the issue of burning in Thailand. It's quite different. For example, in case of sugarcane, the farmer burn it not because they just want to destroy the residue. It's not like that. But they burn it because it's more easy. It's easier for them to harvest. And they also don't have the harvester machine in order to help them in terms of harvesting. So the issue of sugarcane should not be something like subsidy for or incentive for the residue, but it has to be something like providing investment for the harvesting machines. For the rice, yes, then the residue is very important. When you make it something like the pack, I saw in the northeastern part, that is around 25 baht per pack, but when it go to the southern part in Thailand, it becomes 60, from 25 to 60. But the problem is the farmer get only 3 baht per pack. So the issue is, if these people who make this pack meet the farmer before they start the new crop, they get 3 baht. But if they cannot meet before the new crop start, they just burn it. So we have to find some kind of incentive, not big. In case of Move Forward Party, we set up something like 1,000 baht per ton. So it can help the farmer, to keep and then sell it. In case of corn or maize, then it's another story. It's not easy to correct the corn in the hill or mountainous area. So you need to change the crop from maize to other something like agroforestry or tree, just like what Danny mentions. So we have to pack the incentive, not only in terms of economic incentive, but also in terms of land entitlements, and also in terms of debt restructuring program. I completely agree with Ingo that if we can set up the good incentive package and also help them to solve their biggest problem, that is land and debt. If we can combine carbon, land, and debt into the one package, then it's become a very nice solution for them and also for the whole society.
Does anybody else?
100% agree. No, it's a financial engineering, no? And the base value of ag waste is to keep that C molecule in the soil and not put it into the atmosphere as CO2 with the 2.5 ppm with the fine dust, right? So that's the base value, and that's maybe $20 to $30 a ton. That would be great, no, to keep it down there. But then there are other applications that you can do, no? Like for example, a biochar. No? So basically you reduce the waste, no? And biochar, I think, is a very effective soil enhancer, and it's a very effective tool to increase water retention capacity. No? So there's a really interesting value, and it's very circular in a very small system. No? So the economics around that's very interesting. No? I think then for other fibers, like rice straw, for example, I think there are very interesting applications in packaging, like sustainable organic packaging, that with also a very substantial value. No? But it's a variety, it's a basket of solution, no? And we have to judge kind of like the suitability on this like case by case, very distributed way by like, again, working with the right people, making the right connections, developing the right understanding. No? Yeah.
Right, question.
Yes, my name is Christopher Moore. I'm a member of the club. My question is really about traceability. It's about trying to understand what's obviously a highly complex problem that has multiple facets to it. It's easy to kind of blame one sector over another, but I'm wondering to what extent civil society in particular can look to developments, certainly in high tech, in terms of, it was already mentioned that in China that there are citizen apps. Would it actually move things forward if there was much better data analysis? Because at the moment it seems like what I'm hearing is we're still in a dark forest. We're searching for pathways out of that. We're trying to come up with solutions, and part of that, it seems to me, requires better data than what we may have now, and particularly data at the grassroots level, where you would have apps where, with the hill tribes outside of Chiang Mai, that you would have real-time data, and you would have systems that would be able to analyze that data to come up with actionable plans for a particular area. And it may prove that one side of the mountain has more of a problem than the other that no one realized. That the communities would, in a sense, by having that data available, it would strengthen their position in shaping government policy. So I'd just be interested to see what the panel would think about really bringing in the high-tech kind of world that we have into food production in Thailand?
Does anybody want to say that?
Specifically, Christopher, you want to talk about the food production? I mean, I think I'm in the 21st century, right? I mean, the other day we were part of a air pollution hackathon. Well, there was solutions being using AI where you can even detect what's coming out of a smokestack without actually using anything too sophisticated. I think the technology is there. It's just joining the dots. And you're right. It's funny, right? Because like a lot of times when we cite international research on health impacts, the pushback we get is, oh, it doesn't work because it's not Thai data. It's like, okay, what did you mean? Thai Pacific data, right? And it really annoys me because once you talk about Thai data, you need two things, right? Health impact and the air pollution quality. And they're like, okay, only get from the PCD or the registered census. Well, you know what? Go look at the data from the registered census, and you'll see that there are times where it's closed. And I'm not talking about 1 or 2 weeks. There are some census, even till now, that are closed for 5 months in a year. How do you do research on data that's spotty? Health impact, when they were doing health impact data, and they were looking at, so said, Bangkok, capital city of this country. A lot of times Bangkok is taken out. Health data is too spotty. Why? Because health data is spread between the private hospital, the BMA-run hospital, and the Ministry of Public Health hospital. All of them work in silos. They don't share data. It's absolutely ridiculous, but it's a real problem. So when they do data analysis, they're like, okay, take Bangkok out. Crazy, 15 million people, you don't even want to look at this data. So a lot of problems do come from organizations working in silos, and that's why we've brought in the concept of co-management in this idea, right? In this draft legislation. And we also have operating bodies that are locally based. And if you read it, we actually have qualifications for who can qualify to be on it. And it does require you to be, if it's a local body or a special area, it does require you to be someone who lives there for a certain amount of time too. You can't be Tom, Dick, or Harry from somewhere else.
Inga.
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have the experience this year that the hotspot data is very precisely, and also the burn scar data is also very precisely. That's why I quite believe that if we would like to go for traceability in case of burning, we can do it. But the problem is the government budget. They allow only for certified for GAP, good agricultural practice, allow 60,000 farms for the whole country. So we have to increase, we not only check for the farmer, but we also have to provide the certificate for them, and then they can go for the higher price, for example. So we have to increase the budget and the support for good agricultural practice, but we firmly believe that traceability in case of burning can be done, certainly. And not only in case of Thailand, also in case of other country, we can also do it, but we may have some kind of quite stronger law in terms of import back to Thailand. In the draft of Move Forward Party, we mentioned that if you are in the food production that may related to the haze, transboundary haze, you have to report from all the input that you buy back to the country.
Just 3 points to that. So on peer-to-peer, I think we know already it can really work. I think the best application of peer-to-peer in food is restaurant reviews. So that's a peer-to-peer network or Airbnb. So we can extend that idea and in more and more certification systems in agricultural supply chain. We don't rely anymore on verifiers to verify data, but on peer-to-peer processes, right? to bring this to a governance level, I think look what the government of Taiwan is doing. The digital minister Audrey Tang, it's like revolutionary and transparency around that. And the third point is now coming back to this, like, you know, basically positive rewards-based system. If you want to claim carbon credits, you have to deliver data, a lot of data, to document to us that you have done something positive. No? So, and that mechanism works, right? If you get a reward as a result of submitting data, you have such a motivation to submit data, no? And it works at a massive, massive scale, no? And it leads to, you know, and then we get access to satellite data. All of a sudden that becomes very affordable if at the end of this data submission process is a financial transaction, no? So the moment we have that in the picture, if you ask somebody to transmit data, though you can punish them, good luck, right? But if you basically say, transmit data, so can I reward you? Oh yeah, works like a charm.
Very interesting. This idea that an opportunity is being missed, that all this energy is being burnt instead of going into, say, a power generating station. Thailand has not invested in these new technologies. So when you look at power stations, they're still coal-fired. They're old world. They're still building dams. And one of the reasons for that is that the habit is there. That's the way the bureaucrats think. It's the way the banks think as well, that they understand how to fund the old installations. They haven't been educated in the alternatives. And it is astonishing that this stuff is not used. I mean, if you think about the way Thais recycle waste, plastic, glass, they're actually very advanced. I mean, every village has got somebody that's buying it up. They actually pay money for rubbish. That doesn't happen anywhere in Europe. So what you're on about, this whole idea, if you monetize it, Thailand ought actually to be a very accommodating environment, because Thais respond very well to something. They'll run around, you see them on their motorbikes, they collect rubbish, they recycle it. It works. It's a good environment, actually. But we'll disagree with me.
I mean, no,
Don't
absolutely.
nod.
You know, basically, exactly like value extraction on. You know, I think it's very efficient, as long as you can do as you want to, right? Power is, you know, like, yes, we could have much more renewable power. Why don't we have it? Because power is based on a grid-based system that is controlled by other interests, right? So it's not a lack of technology. It's like, you know, there are people who have a contract to supply power, which means, you know, it's a license to make money, and the country only needs so much power, right? So that's a whole other basket of topics. You know?
Right.
But the moment you're not grid-based, the moment you can act in a non-permissioned fashion, a lot is possible.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the smaller installations, you know, in power, we see it. As long as all the power you make, you do not need to submit to the grid, but you can use it for your own purpose. You can do a lot already. No? But the moment you get to a certain scale and you need the grid, then things are a little bit tricky. But also that, I think, is something that is in transition, but also like early days, I think.
Right.
May I add a little information that in fact the Myanmar coal-fired power plant in Lampang in the north of Thailand, they can use also the biomass.
Right.
So agricultural waste all over the northern region can go there. The problem is not about the power plant. The problem is about transportation cost.
Right.
That's why we need to have some kind of another plans. For example, like maybe you have a small scale power plant in each, for example, in each district, for example, or maybe you have a biochar, then you can use it for agriculture. So we need to have this kind of how you say, the business model and also the entrepreneur in order to make it to be realities. And I think sorry, if we have 1,000 baht per ton as the additional, at the starting subsidy, it can be happen faster.
Much quicker, yeah. And of course, biochar is very, very easy to do, actually. It's low technology. Right, well, we've run for an hour and 20, so if there are any more questions, run up. You're all exhausted. So on that note, I'd like to thank Rina, Ingo, and Decho, I've forgotten your name, it's stuck in here, for coming and giving us a very interesting talk on a topic that is absolutely not going to go away. This is so pressing, so urgent, that it has to be dealt with. And I think when this legislation gets further down the track, we'll be looking to have you back here. And maybe we'll do a better job of inviting some of the agro businesses so that they can give their viewpoint. I have to say that when we do, they tend not to want to come and talk, but I think that will change in the future. So thank you very much, and if you're environmentally invested, come tomorrow to hear about the desecration of the Mekong and how China is turning it into one long dead canal tomorrow. Good.